Toku Secrets is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hey everybody, it's Jason from Power Rangers Time Force, and you're watching Toku Secrets Podcast.
Tokusatsu, taking the form of many shows including Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Metal Heroes. And today, a group of fans come together to review it for you as Toku Secrets.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Toku Secrets Podcast, presented by animesecrets.org. I'm your host, Nathan Desa, and today we are continuing our Zyuranger series. We're going to be reviewing episodes 17 through 22. This is a very important arc for Zyuranger. We're going to be talking about the debut of Burai, the Dragon Ranger, and we have the whole crew on here again. Go ahead and introduce yourself, guys.
Yeah, Pat Chinkenred.
Hey, Rizwan Gokai Red here.
And it's Anthony Davis, also known as Kyoryu Green.
All right, so we usually this is a section where we talk about what happened in Zyuranger last time, but we don't really have anything because the last Zyuranger podcast, at least in chronological order, it was nothing but a bunch of fillers, and I regret that I didn't put that at the beginning of our first Zyuranger podcast. I'm regretting a lot of things about this Zyuranger series, honestly, now, because it's becoming a lot more trouble than I think we bargained for. But anyway, instead of talking about what happened last time, it's very important to, before we start talking about this story arc, it's very important to talk about the lasting impact that this one story arc happens. So, most people know, obviously, if we talk about the Green with Evil equivalent, that was obviously big because, it introduced the fan favorite Ranger Tommy, R.I.P. Jason David Frank, we still love you, man. And, but in the case of this, it also had a lasting impact because even though this wasn't the first Sentai to introduce mainstay additional Rangers, it was the first to introduce a sixth Ranger as a mainstay hero. Now, Rangers have been introduced before, like in Jaka, they had Big One. They started off with 4, and then Big One came, their White Ranger. And then in Live Man, they started off with 3, and then the Black and Green Rangers came in. But it was never a 6th Ranger as a mainstay. Now, there were 2 prototype 6th Rangers in both Bioman and Maskman. Bioman had a Black Warrior called the Magne Warrior, and Maskman had a Green Ranger called X1 Mask. They only appeared in 1 episode each, though. And I don't know about Bioman, but I do know at least in Maskman's case, he lost his powers, so that's why he can't appear anymore. And so this is the first time that we have a mainstay 6th Ranger, and it has now become a staple of franchise because to this, since Zyuranger, there is only one Sentai that has not featured a 6th hero of some sort. That is the 1999 Sentai Go-Go 5 from 1999, which was adapted into Lightspeed Rescue. I do know that Power Rangers version, they had the Titanium Ranger, but he did not exist in a Super Sentai. And even some Sentais that don't technically have a 6th hero still do of some sort. Like in Car Ranger, they had the Signal Man, the Blue Centurion, who I think he's good enough to be a 6th Ranger. Plus, he's a funny character. So, then I don't care what anybody says. I think the Black Knight in Ginga Man is the 6th Ranger. Like, he basically is. So, but yeah.
Wouldn't the Phantom Ranger also count as Turbo's 6th Ranger?
I don't even.
VRV Master?
Yeah. I don't know.
VRV Master was only in about 3 episodes, and he did nothing.
They don't even, and he's even debatable as a ranger in general, like in Sentai. Like I know that
I don't think he
Having
ever got a
Genshin.
ranger
he
key.
didn't.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, but even if you take the Phantom Ranger out of the picture, I mean, I think Signal Man is a close enough for a Six Ranger and Car Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we are going to now get into this arc. We're gonna go over each episode. I'll give the basics. We're dealing with 6 episodes here, all of which were adapted into the Green with Evil 5-part miniseries. So we start off with episode 17, the 6th hero. Um, so this is, featuring the debut of Burai. So do you guys remember these brief characters from an early episode, the Pudgy Pig episode? Remember that guy Gnome? Wait, you don't? Well, too bad. He's still a main character in this episode. Um,
Do I have to remember another kid? Really?
Dang it.
Gnome wasn't a kid, but still. Um, it's still a forgettable character. Uh,
It's close
yeah.
enough. He's a gnome.
Okay, that was a good one. Um, so apparently, Gnome has a grandson named Ryota, who is also, is also a gnome himself. So most of this episode is that he apparently wants to awaken this invincible warrior named Burai, but unfortunately, Barza and Gnome don't want him to free Burai. So it's revealed. Uh, Ryota reveals to Geki and Mei that Burai was another warrior who trained himself in the forest. He lived with gnomes. He supposedly became a friend with Ryota. And when the Zyurangers went into stasis, Burai also requested to be put into stasis. And he can only be reawakened on the anniversary of the day he was put into stasis. And most of the episode is Ryota trying to go into the cave where Burai was in order to free him, and Arza and Gnome are basically just going commando. Like they they get all these guns and grenades and start trying to stop Ryota, basically trying to kill him. It's stupid.
Why? Why so
And
much? It's like, is that really necessary? I mean, that's kind of
mm,
overkill, but that's just me.
and there's a huge struggle. Bandura's forces get in the middle of it, distract the other Zyurangers, and Ryota enters the cave. Burai gets reawakened. Burai announces himself the prince of Geki's Yamato tribe. He rejects Ryota. He literally pushes him away, and then he transforms into Dragon Ranger. And pretty much the rest of the episode plays out exactly how the Power Rangers episode does. He spends a couple of minutes wailing on the Zyurangers, absolutely just walking right through them. That's what ends the episode. Um, just a brief thing before we get into the discussion here. Burai is this happens a lot more frequently than I think a lot of people know, but it's the first time that we're addressing an issue like this on the Toku Secrets podcast. Burai is a Sentai Ranger who is played by an actor who was another Sentai Ranger, Shiro Izumi, was previously Yuma Ozora, Change Pegasus, the Blue Ranger of Dengeki Sentai Changeman. Really a great character. I prefer him much better as Burai. I say this as someone who's seen Changeman all the way through. He's had a couple of other roles, like he played a samurai in an episode of Kaku Ranger. He was a forest ranger in O Ranger. So this guy's been around the block in Sentai as many characters. Yeah, just wanted to bring that up. I just spent a little bit of time talking. Anyone want to say what they think of this first debut episode? Go ahead, anybody. Uh,
Um, it's a little bit cartoonish with the whole Where did they get the military equipment from again?
They
Ancient
must have been
wizard,
watching
an
Total
ancient,
Commando or something.
you know, an ancient wizard in a forest, attack a kid with military equipment. This is a Sentai we're watching,
And
right?
why do you have to kill Ryota? I mean, this is one of those episodes that literally could just be resolved. Just tell Ryota a couple of words. Don't revive Burai. He's evil. That's 5 words. And that's all that you need to say, and then the whole issue would be resolved.
This could have all been avoided.
Yeah, like
The
there was
entire thing.
yeah, there's a more common sense way to approach this, but this show doesn't do common sense.
And honestly, like, I mean, now some people say, well, we wouldn't have the story arc if they did that. Well, I don't necessarily think so. What you could have done is that you could have a gnome tell his grandson, hey, Burai is evil and you shouldn't revive him. And then Ryuta rejects him and says, no, he's not evil. Like, I mean, he did all these nice things and we had all these great times together, and they show all these flashbacks, and then he denies it and then he runs off and then he revives Burai anyway. So, I mean, then you could focus a little bit more on the drama instead of all this stupid kill the kid nonsense. It would be a much more serviceable episode.
At the risk of validating Patrick further and increasing his ego further, this would have required the writing team to actually know how to write characters.
They don't.
This is one case where the Power Rangers debut episode is so much better. I'm gonna be honest, like it
was, yeah.
No, definitely.
Because Link won't shut up about how great the Green Ranger arc is.
Well, okay, here's the thing. At the end of episode 1 of Greenwood Evil and Mighty Morphin, back as a kid and even now, you can feel the threat of Tommy as the Green Ranger. Like, he's not somebody we trifled with. You kind of feel like, oh crap, what's gonna happen now? Like, how can they possibly beat this guy who kicked them out their own dang Megazord? But Burai, while he is a threat, I don't feel the threat, Like, it's not as well done, in my opinion. I think that's because up until this point, I have no reason to care about any character, except for maybe Mai, but that's only because Mai is adorable.
Because I guess you feel that they didn't really invest in the characters as well as they did in Mighty Morphin. Yeah, sure, Mighty Morphin, the characters are kind of like, straightforward, and they're not really well developed either. But the difference between that, Mighty Morphin, and Zyuranger, we know who the Power Rangers are. As people, we see how they live their lives, what they do for, school, friends, all that stuff. With Zyuranger, we don't know much about them, and then we try to get to know them. Guess what? We're having to deal with somebody else daily, with another kid or like just somebody else that is not focusing on the character aspect of what it's supposed to be about. Because honestly, we don't care about the kids. We care about the Rangers. Well, we should care about the Rangers. I'm sorry.
I also think it helped in the Mighty Morphin version that we got to see a little bit of Tommy before he got corrupted, so we kind of became a little bit familiar with him. We don't know anything about Burai before he comes out of his chamber, and this just led to this thought. This Burai should have waited until the second episode before he made his appearance in this arc. Give us like a whole episode of maybe like have more flashbacks of him from like the kid's angle, because he was like, well, he did all this good stuff, and then maybe have like Barza's point of view from it, where it shows him being more devious and everything. So it kind of leaves.
You could have him at the very end, but like have him end the episode with him like pushing Ryota down and rejecting him. End it there, like that would have been fine.
Yeah,
and it's not a. No, go ahead, Patrick. I'm sorry.
feels like that's like if it's just that there wasn't enough build
It's not
up
only
to
that,
him
but the
like
Power
Tommy
Rangers
got.
episode. Okay, the Green with Evil arc has a lot of problems, but I think the first episode is perfect. Like, we meet this new kid. He's able to go head to head with Jason in martial arts, which is a huge deal because the show has established that Jason is the best fighter. And that inspires Rita to brainwash him and make her own Power Ranger. Now, sure, there's the plot hole of where she got the power coin from, but in all fairness, it was never established where Zordon got the power coins either. So we can look past that. You know, he's able to use the power coin to enter the command center. He completely wrecks it. Then he goes and he beats the Rangers into submission, and it's now, oh man, like, oh no, we have an evil Power Ranger that has destroyed the command center, and he can beat us, and we don't even have Zordon to help us out here. Which, yeah, that's probably another reason why I like the Power Rangers episode so much. The fact that Tommy is able to enter the command center, which was seen as like an impenetrable before then. It's just so like the Green Ranger destroying the command center is one of the most chilling scenes in all of Mighty Morphin. Like, I just that's another reason why. Because I mean, hey, Burai never infiltrates the Zyurangers base, so.
You know, it's funny it's funny that you bring up the whole. We don't know where Rita got the green power
That's
coin
another
either. We
thing,
don't know where
like,
Burai got his dragon coin either. And yeah, there's an idea that I think would have been cool to build off of this, but we'll talk about that
Yeah,
when
but
we
a
get
spoiler
into his
alert there,
backstory a
guys.
little bit later.
I mean, I'm willing to forgive that they don't explain where he got his powers from in this episode, because to be fair, Sentai tends to do that where someone just shows up and they all of a sudden have Ranger powers, but then we get the very next episode that explains how they did it. Like, perfect example, Shinkenger. Inta shows up and he just has the ability to transform, but we learn how he gets the ability to transform in the very next episode, so it's fine. But we don't learn how Burai gets his powers at all, not even in the next episode. So it's kind of bad.
I mean, it's kind of weird because the temple where they awaken the 5 OG Zyuranger, there's not a component for Dragon Ranger to come out of. Like, why is it only those
At
5
least
that have a
give
shrine in
us,
that
like,
temple or whatever they're
say
doing?
that the gnomes had their own tribe, that they created their own guardian beast or something, and that's where Burai's powers come from. Okay, maybe that will.
Yeah, I mean, that was actually kind of along the lines of the idea that I wanted, because skipping ahead to the next episode where it's revealed that he's Geki's brother. You could say that after their father was killed, the king was killed, he ran away from home and ended up in an exiled sixth kingdom that had their own guardian beast and coin, but it wasn't a part of, he wasn't paired up with the other guardian beasts due to whatever reason, so they saw eye to eye and they chose Bri to be their guardian, and they put him to rest as pay to get vengeance on the other kingdoms for freezing their champions or something.
It's sad that we came up with something as easy as that, but the writers couldn't even think of something that simple.
Like, I literally just improvised that whole thing right now, and it's already a better idea than what we actually got.
That's sad. That's really sad.
It's not hard to do, though. It's
No,
the
it's
fun
not.
part. I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's like stuff you can do. It takes a bit of time to do the writing behind it all, but brainstorming, I feel like it's not end of the world difficult.
Before we give our
No.
overall thoughts on this and move on to the next one, and this is going to be a short discussion because I think we all know how we feel about this. How do we feel? What do we think of the Dragon Ranger suit? The very first Sixth Ranger suit, I should add. What do we all think about that?
It's my favorite individual Ranger outfit in all of Super Sentai.
Same.
hands down.
It's still badass to this day.
Yeah.
I really
It
wish
holds up
that
really well.
some Six Ranger suits would still do it. Like the last time they did it was with King Ranger. I just love how they're really making a big deal on how awesome he is by like adding the dragon armor. Because I don't know, I wish that Six Ranger suits would sometimes still occasionally do that. Just add like a shield or some chest armor. Like that's probably the best part of it. I mean, the Zyuranger suits themselves are already really awesome. So getting one that has like some additional armor is really cool.
Well, also, the other thing to talk about before we move on, does anyone else get bothered by the fact that Burai's guardian beast is a dragon, but it's been kind of, at the very least, hinted that the guardian beasts are derived from previous inhabitants of the planet Earth? Like, does this mean dragons existed on this Earth, or like,
Well, like
what's going on here?
Here's how we can make this work. You remember how we were
God.
talking about the idea of the kingdom that he ran off to being a kingdom of gnomes that was banished? Well, what are they? Mystical. Dragons are sort of seen as mystical creatures depending on what country you ask.
Sort of seen as? Dude, dragons are mystical, no
Yeah,
question about
Yeah,
it. Get out of
so
here
it
with
would
that
make
sort of.
sense. So it makes sense for a kingdom of magical elves to have a more mystical creature as their guardian beast.
Yeah.
And this writer
I
of
mean,
this
that works,
Sentai
but-
Hire me, Toei.
I mean, he gave us.
And like the same problem does exist in Mighty Morphin. I'll give it that. But I also
Yeah,
don't
because Mighty
care as
Morphin
much in
never
Mighty
explicitly
Morphin
says
like
that
I do
they're all
here.
based on dinosaurs. Like, but in the case of the Zyuranger,
Yeah.
I mean, Dora kind of says dinosaurs, but I mean, like,
the dinosaurs are also not like the driving force of their powers. While in Zyuranger, they're from prehistoric times, and it's literally called Dinosaur Sentai. So it kind of is a little bit of a bigger deal here than it is in Power Rangers. But anyway, I want to give this first episode. I can't remember what I gave it in my original notes, but I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 10. It's really bad. Everybody else?
I'd probably say a 6, just because I think, even though this episode is a little bit stupid most of the time, I do think his introduction is just iconic. So I give it a 6.
I'm gonna go with a 5 because you can keep your 2 and 8. I don't mind. I'm just saying that for me to give something lower than a 4 requires me to be angry. Like with
I'm not
certain...
angry. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Exactly. This isn't Don. This isn't Geki Ranger. This is a decent attempt at Sentai.
This writer is still better than Geki Ranger's writer, because he at least gave us Kaku Ranger later on, and Kaku Ranger is a half decent Sentai. So.
Right, but like, I'm just saying, this is at least a half decent attempt at Sentai, whereas Geki
I agree.
Ranger...
The only reason I'm not giving it a 0 is because that final battle is still pretty cool.
And Geki Ranger?
No. In this episode.
Oh yeah. Okay.
What's your score, Anthony?
I'm also gonna give it a 5 as well. It would have been higher, but like that whole scene with freaking Gnome and Barza just going full commando on old boy, it was just too much.
Can I give you guys a very funny visual before we move on? What if we switched the plots from the 2 shows, and Bulk and Skull are being chased down the street by Alpha and Zordon in a tank?
That would be awesome.
Yeah, with their theme song, After Them Alpha.
I'm on the way, Zordon! Here's a grenade!
Alpha
skull trips, and then Bulk is like, "Get up, lumphead, and run, you idiot!"
It's just Alpha lobbing grenades. I don't know why, but that image just popped up when we were discussing this, and I had to share it with you guys.
I don't even question how your brain works anymore. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
Would be stupid, but it'd be funny.
It would probably be a lot
Yeah,
more
I'd rather
entertaining
watch
than the
that than-
Zyuranger. Yeah, no,
Watch that
yeah,
than-
seriously.
Anyway, we're going to move on to episode 18, The Hate-Filled Brother Sword. This continues the arc. We learn about Burai's backstory in this episode. Apparently, Burai is Geki's older brother. Barza reveals it to him. And believe it or not, apparently Geki is not part of the Yamato tribe by birth. He was actually adopted as a baby from a family when Burai was 8. So, I mean, obviously the series has now forgotten that Geki had an older sister that was mentioned in the previous episodes. Either that or I
They
guess
literally took her out of the story. They're like, oh, I seem they just forgot about her.
And a little bit after that, Burai and Geki's true father, who's never named, but he staged a rebellion against the Yamato king, and he was killed and defeated in battle. And in his dying breath, he told Burai to avenge him and take his place as the rightful ruler of the world. The backstory is a little complicated, and we'll talk about that later when we're discussing this episode. Burai vowed revenge and spent the rest of his life training in the forest among gnomes so that he could get revenge on the Yamato king that killed his father. And now that the Yamato king is dead, he's directing his vengeance on Geki, since Geki's his father. I mean, no, his son. Sorry. There's a little bit of a fun fact that is obviously a coincidence, but it's absolutely insane. The flashback scenes, when we see Burai as a kid, Burai is portrayed by the actor Hisashi Sakai. And the reason why that is a big deal is because in the very next Sentai Zyuranger, he will go on to play Kiba Ranger. Kiba Ranger is the suit that was used for the White Ranger in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And who is the White Ranger in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? Tommy, who is also the Green Ranger, who is a Dragon Ranger. So this one actor has played both of Tommy's counterparts to some extent.
When you had said that, I'm reminded of that one scene from the Incredibles. The one. It was the one where Mr. Incredible finds the giant computer. He's scanning through all the sea heroes and whatnot. Spoiler. Small spoiler for people who haven't seen the Incredibles. Sorry. But there's a certain piece of music that plays in the background.
Oh yeah, that intense dramatic music. I know what I'm talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's that very dramatic music. It feels like it fits here when he's discussing about that.
You need that. You need that picture of that guy with the note board with everything taped together like a conspiracy note board, and just put Nate's head in front of it.
Yeah.
That'd be great. On a side note for Anthony, I know you just gave spoilers for The Incredibles, but if you haven't seen The Incredibles at this point, what is wrong with you? It's an amazing movie.
This movie's been out for like 2 decades now. Come on now, y'all need to see the movies.
Anyway, we'll talk about The Incredibles at some point later, I guess. So the rest of the episode, after we learn about the past, first of all, a little bit of a fun fact here. Apparently, the footage of Geki and Burai's father's battling, they actually used that footage. They used it in a VR Troopers episode in season 2. They were talking about a sword.
What?
I don't know the whole story behind it because I haven't watched much of VR Troopers, especially season 2. But yeah, they apparently took that footage and used it in VR Troopers. So
yeah, what didn't VR Troopers take footage from?
But the rest of the episode is, all about. So after we learn all about the story, Burai is sent to a pocket dimension from Bandora to get his own weapon. Bandora brings up how the Zyurangers have the legendary weapons, which it's weird that she mentions that, because here's a spoiler alert here. The Zyurangers never use their legendary weapons until the very end when Geki uses his Ryugekiken, so kind of weird for Bandora to mention that, but whatever. Burai goes to this pocket dimension, and he goes, and, he has this huge battle where he gets the Sword of Hell freed, then confronts Geki, who is now determined to make amends with his brother, and it plays out where Burai walks through the other 4 Zyurangers. Geki refuses to transform and won't fight him, and Burai is ready to kill Geki, but then Daijujin shows up and says that he needs to kill Burai, which is kind of, we're going to go into more details about it in our next podcast, but Daijujin's motivation makes absolutely no sense given a plot revelation that we're going to get in the next podcast, but we'll talk about that in that podcast. And episode ends with Bandora revealing that she has a plan to kill Daijujin in 10.5 days. Burai is supposed to play a huge role in that. What do we think of this episode, guys? I just spoke for a little bit. Anybody want to give their?
Hey, I have several things I wanted to say.
All right, go with it.
Why? And I say this again. Why did Burai and Geki's father? Why did he rebel? What was the reason? What was the reason? Was the reason?
Anthony, to quote a very sage student of our great and lordly savior Zordon, the Almighty Gosei,
I knew you were.
There's a very simple explanation for that.
Oh my god!
As soon as you opened your mouth, Riz, I knew exactly where you were going with that.
And then there's also the question of
I need to be less predictable, I guess.
Yeah.
And then whatever happened to Gnome's grandson? He was literally the guy who started all this, but yet he's not even.
We never see him for the rest of the series.
It's almost as if he was only there to free Burai and then disappear.
It's implied that he died.
Imagine that.
So, he is Burai.
Oh shoot!
You can't prove it that they're not the same person. You've never seen the same room, have you?
Yeah, Burai's backstory makes absolutely they try to make sense of it in a later episode, but I don't know, they make this needlessly complicated. You could just say that you could just have a throwaway line that just says that Geki, that their father was a rebellious jerk, and he tried to do, he committed crimes, and Geki was adopted as punishment, and then their father tried to go through with the rebellion anyway, or something like that. Just give one throwaway line that just says that their father was a rebellious knight, something, and that would have made everything fun.
Yeah, and what makes it confusing is that it almost seemed like Geki's father didn't want to give his son up to be adopted, and it's if you didn't want him to be taken in, why did you give him up? It makes no sense.
Especially to the guy that you very clearly had issues with, because it doesn't seem like Geki was any older in the flashbacks from when he was given to the king and when he rebelled.
And neither does Burai look older.
Right. So, what happened? What happened?
Or you could just say that, okay, first of all, Burai wanting to rule the world, that's just making his motivations needlessly complicated. Just go with the revenge plot, and that's fine. But if you want to go with the ruler world domination plot, then just say that that Geki and Burai's father had world domination goals, and he had Geki adopted as part of that, but then that plan failed. So then he said, "Okay, screw it. I'm going to kill the king and just take over myself." Like, I mean, you could just throw in like a simple line there. You don't have to show it. Just give a line of dialogue, and everything is fine.
Yeah, because you're making these so complicated. So it's like it kind of just shows that because without a backstory, it's about why Geki was adopted. It just kind of makes the king just go like, I'm gonna adopt your kid, and you can't stop me because so screw you and give me your kid. Bye.
Or you can make it like a betrayal of trust thing. Like, well, the king would agree to do this to help your people if you give us one of your kids. And like, that's a little bit morbid, but you know, sure, if it means helping a bunch of other people, and then the king didn't follow through on what he promised, which led to the rebellion. Like,
Which again still makes Geki's adopted father, aka the king, a prick. So
exactly.
It doesn't really.
It has.
Either way, it doesn't help his character, but if that been something,
it still gets the point across.
Yeah. But, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just pointing out that like that would have been great. But it wouldn't help Geki's adopted father out though.
Like, I'm sitting here not even trying. I'm coming up with better stuff than this.
Right. Again, it's not hard when they give zero craps.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Megaforce.
I think so because these episodes are recorded out of order for us that took his secrets. I think I talked about this in the next episode we recorded for post the Burai stuff about the kids, right? I think they were so focused on trying to appeal to the kids again that they forgot how to write stories.
It's not hard. I mean, I don't like to brag too much, but I've written some half decent Power Rangers related stuff, and I'm currently trying to do my own like little reversion of Megaforce. So yeah, coming up with stories is not that difficult, guys. As long as you just know what to work with. Like, again, I don't like to brag too much, but yeah. But now I do want to give this episode. I do want to clarify that I don't think the Power Rangers episode is as good as the previous one because, like, it's. So first of all, how does they don't give a good they have to have the Sword of Darkness all of a sudden be tied to read a spell on Tommy, which makes no sense. What's Tommy's test to get the Sword of Darkness? Oh, let's have him do the exact same thing that he did to prove that he was worthy of the Green Ranger powers. You know, let's have him fight some putties unmorphed. And
Goldo unmorphed. That would have proved he actually was able to hold his own.
Get one of the monster suits that you can use, because they had like a handful of monster suits that they could use in original footage. Just have them on, like, I think you got, okay, maybe not the Pudgy Pig suit, because that Pudgy Pig isn't intimidating enough, but like, I think they had the Snizzard suit for original footage, so just have him battle someone like Snizzard or something like that, unmorphed. Showing that he can beat a monster by himself is good enough. And then they have Jason seek Tommy out just so Tommy can trap Goldar and, Jason in Dark Dimension. And, of course, Jason is only there so that they can use that in order to, like, keep Jason absent. And then we have the whole big battle with between Tommy and those other Rangers where all of a sudden... Okay, again, here it makes sense because Daijujin has the ability to, like, show up by himself, while in the Power Rangers episode, they have to summon their Zords. So I guess now because Zach is in charge, he and Zordon and Jason aren't there, Zach is all like, screw the rules, let's escalate the battle. And then they summon the Megazord. Then they summon the Megazord.
Hey, you only do it once, so hey.
They summon the Megazord, they hold on this shot of the Megazord moving its arms, which in Zyuranger it was Daijujin talking, but the Megazord can't talk, so it makes no sense. Like, could you at least just throw a line over it, like Zach saying, like, "All right, Green Ranger, we're gonna shut you down," or something like that, like just some basic line. And I don't know, I don't like
Tommy could have said, "No way."
stupid line in part 5. We'll get to that later, though. So I think this one is better than the Power Rangers episode, but it doesn't mean that it's not amazing. Like, we're not about to get, like, this arc is going to get good. Don't get me wrong, but we're not at the good part yet. Anybody else want to say anything else about it? Mr. Patrick?
Nah.
I think we've covered it pretty well.
Yeah,
I'm going to give
still
this
need
one
to
a
say about this
5.
episode.
It's not as bad as the previous one, but it's just meh.
Yeah, same here.
This continues the trend to 5 for me.
And Anthony?
I'm going to give it a 4.5. You don't know why? Because of the backstory. It still made no sense to me, and I'm still pissed about it.
Yeah, can't blame you for that. Back.
What story?
The Burai backstory.
Oh, okay.
Brief thing before we move on. Just a note. So Burai is a main character, and he will always be, but he is actually not given his spot in the opening credits. Shiro Izumi is only lightly credited as a supporting character, because I think I said this in our History of Super Sentai series. 6 Rangers don't appear in the credits in their own slot until Gal Ranger. So believe it or not, when we watch Time Ranger next, we're not going to see Time Fire in credits. They would occasionally lightly credit, like in Mega Ranger, they show Mega Silver riding his motorcycle, but we don't see the Mega Silver guy get credited. And in Time Ranger's case, we're going to see Time Fire perform his finishing move. We don't see Time Fire himself. I don't like that. I feel like you're disrespecting the best character in this Sentai, but what are you going to do? I mean, this Sentai doesn't really have much respect for anything great, so that's that. Anyway, we got episode 19, Female Warrior Scorpion. This episode, even though it's technically part of the arc, is more of a regular episode. Like, Burai only appears, like... Burai doesn't really do much in this episode, but... So, do you guys remember those dinosaur eggs that we saw a couple of episodes? Oh, wait, you found those annoying? Well, too bad. They're back. So, dinosaur eggs reappear, and it's revealed that they were found by 2 brothers in the chest. 2 brothers get in the chest that they fell away with. And Lami, who is Griforzer's wife, she was sent by Bandora to track them. Lami is Scorpina's counterpart, so yeah, here's a big thing, guys. In this version, Goldar and Scorpina are married, and as much as I have issues with Zyuranger, I love that, and I don't know why they didn't have Goldar and Scorpina be married in Power Rangers, because that's fun, in my opinion, and they really try to give the villains a little bit more of a humorous or like human edge to them, and at least, during the Rita and Zed era. So why can't you have Goldar and Scorpina get married? You have Rita and Zed get married later on, so why can't you do that?
At least they wrote a story for some character in Zyuranger.
Yeah, you're right.
There was some effort. It's not a whole lot, but it's something.
You know what?
Look, at this point,
cute,
I will take
for a humanoid scorpion warrior and a guy in a griffin suit. They're cute. I mean, yeah, they're not a bad couple. They seem pretty cool. Yeah. But anyway, so Lami has been tracking the dinosaur eggs, and she actually agreed to work for Bandora in exchange for giving her husband the ability to speak. Because I think I established this, Griforzer cannot talk thus far, but Bandora agrees to give Grafforza the ability to speak. This episode ends with Bandora capturing one of the brothers that found the dinosaur eggs and demands that the Zyurangers give him to her in exchange for the dinosaur eggs. And the Zyurangers try to get the exchange, and they do save the brother, but dinosaur eggs fall into the hands of Bandora, and then she announces that in 3 days' time, she will bring about the end of Daijujin. How do we know? How do we know how she'll bring the death of Daijujin? Well, we'll find out in the next episode. Yeah, this episode is just. I like the dynamic between Lami and Grafforza, but the rest of this episode just feels like a normal episode that's just there for setup, and not bad, but it's not really amazing either.
Yeah, Lami's introduction in this arc in hindsight feels really out of place. Because it doesn't really go along with what was going on the first 2 episodes. You just kind of... It's like, almost like a filler, not really filler episode slapped in the middle of the story arc. So, I don't know. It's bizarre.
Again, I mean, the one thing that saves it is Lami and Grafforza's relationship. And I don't know if it's in this episode or the next, but there's a real funny episode where the minute that Grafforza gets the ability to speak, he's saying, like, I think Lami needs to spend more time in the kitchen and not battle. And then Bandora is all like, I'm a woman too, and I pay your bills, so shut up.
That's the part I was going to mention. I was like,
taking your voice back.
Like, yeah, you might want to shut up now. I take his voice back, guys. I don't think he needs it because he's going to keep saying dumb stuff like this all the time.
With the Power Rangers episode either. Although I do want to say it's kind of. I was watching Miss Star Fusion's video. One of the big things about so I don't know if many people noticed, but I don't know how to pronounce the guy who does his voice. The guy who voices Goldar, but in throughout the first season of Mighty Morphin, like the first couple of episodes, he always had like a different type of, he was always kind of altering how he would do Goldar's voice, but it's in the Green with Evil story arc that he finally sets on like the, I got away. We are going to destroy the Power Rangers. You are powerless to defeat me. Like the thing. And it's funny how the same story arc where Grafforza gets the ability to speak is the story arc also where we finally get Goldar's iconic voice that's going to stick for the rest of the show. That's kind of a coincidence. We just had another coincidence with, the actor who played young Burai, so yeah, that's kind of insane.
Well, it kind of makes sense to me that this happened to Goldar. Only because, like I said at some point in some podcast somewhere, that Mighty Morphin is the first draft of how to write a Power Ranger story. So they're trying to find their voice, they're trying to find their footing. So it makes sense to me that, they'd be trying to work on splicing Sentai footage and American footage and making it as seamless as possible to pass in the 90s for kids to watch on TV. It would make sense to me that they're trying to figure out how to make their villains feel, because Mighty Morphin came out right at the beginning of the satanic soccer mom protest of like, oh no, our kids can't possibly watch this. It has Satan in it. So it makes sense from that point of view that his voice would be kind of in flux in the beginning, because they're trying to find a way to appease the satanic panic while writing a story and making a new concept happen. Because prior to this, I think anytime they brought Toku over from Japan, they just dubbed it. They didn't do anything beyond that.
Uh,
Also, the voice actor for Goldar is Kerrigan
yeah.
Aha.
Um,
I might have butchered that name,
but
but I'm sorry. But
nothing really to talk about with this episode because we're about to get into the big stuff. Like we're about to get into the meat of the story arc in the next episode. But nothing about this that really annoys me, and I'm actually going to give this a 6 just because the one thing that kind of elevates it a little bit is the Lamy and Graforzer stuff.
Yeah, 5.
I'm gonna give it a 5 too.
And I'm going to end this by saying that I appreciate the Power Rangers audio drama for having Goldor and Scorpina married. I've finished the Power Rangers audio drama, well, at least season 1, a little bit before we recorded this, and it's amazing. I look forward to that review when we're done with Zyuranger. I think we already established that when we recorded this pod.
Spoilers for Patrick.
Sorry, Patrick. But anyway, now we're gonna move on to the big stuff. Where things get, where stuff gets wild. Episode 20, Daijujin's last day. So at the beginning of this, Giant Graforzer, he captures a bus full of children, and the bus is being threatened to be toppled off a cliff where it will kill all the children inside, but it'll also crush the dinosaur eggs at the very bottom. So basically, the first half is all of Bandora's forces trying to bait the Zyurangers into summoning Daijujin. And at the same time, Barza reveals that Daijujin is powered by an energy from the Earth's greenery and sun called Gaiatron. And that will be significantly reduced when a solar eclipse that's supposed to happen begins. So, yeah, that's what Bandora plans to do in order to kill Daijujin. But unfortunately, in the end, when the children and eggs are at stake, the Zyurangers, after spending most of the time hesitating, summon Daijujin and they catch the bus just in time before it hits the ground. There's a huge battle. Now, in the middle of the battle, Top Pad and Bookback try to make off with the dinosaur eggs, and Barza stops them, but then the dinosaur eggs get lost again, and they get washed away in a nearby river. Meanwhile, and if you've seen the Power Rangers episode, you kind of know what happens. Daijujin is weakened by the solar eclipse, and he battles against Giant Graforzer. Giant Lamy takes on this monstrous scorpion form whenever she grows. She'll grow pretty frequently in the show. And then they try to escape, but then Burai shows up, also giant, and unfortunately, because Geki hesitates to fight his brother, Daijujin gets overpowered and can't escape, and Guardian Beast are sent sinking away into a crevice, and Daijujin has been killed, and the episode ends with Geki realizing that his hesitation to fight Burai has led Zyurangers to their worst defeat, and cries out in desperation. And I'll let everybody else talk first, but first I just want to say we are getting to the good stuff, folks. Now the story arc is starting to get pretty good. Anybody else want to give their overall thoughts first?
About time.
I kind of like how Bandor actually had a solid plan and it worked. Like it's a little bit more in depth for what this season usually offers, but she planned this out pretty thoroughly. But
yeah, it's like they put all their eggs in this one basket.
Yeah, I'm just more confused. As the thing I'm just now thinking of is she kind of wanted Burai for this plan. I don't know how she even knew about him in the first place.
Well, that requires us to understand the lore of these 6 individuals. Like,
Yeah.
I think only Barza really knows anything about it.
Yeah, because
like
there was
I
no
don't know.
Dragon Ranger when they were fighting her back in their time period, and then he was frozen after she was already sealed. So,
yeah, this is a super powerful episode. Like, I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
What?
Like, first of all, like, I mean, the Zyurangers hesitate to call the like. So in both versions, the Zyuranger, the Rangers hesitate to call their Zords, but in Zyuranger it makes sense because they know what's coming, which makes it all the more powerful when they do summon it. And the seeing the Zords get destroyed is great, and this arc is starting to find its footing because it's now, the first 3 episodes it was very unfocused, but now it's starting to say, let's focus on Geki's dilemma with Burai, and voila, they do that because if Geki had not hesitated to fight back against Burai, Daijujin could have escaped before it exploded, and he's realized that now his hesitation to fight Burai has led the Zyurangers to their most devastating defeat. Like, it's all really powerful stuff, and I'm not going to say that the Power Rangers episode is not without its own merits. Like, first of all, I like how they replace these random children in a bus with Bulk and Skull. I mean, I know that we laugh at Bulk and Skull, but having them be the people who are under threat is still pretty cool.
Well, it's more meaningful. Like, we know Bulk and Skull. We know who they are, and whether you admit it or not, you have an investment.
There was
in
always
Bulk
a
and
line
Skull.
in the
You don't
Power
really have
Rangers
an investment in
episode
the
that
kid.
always made me laugh when I was a kid, where the bus is about to tumble and then Bulk is all like, "I want my mommy," and then Skull says, "Yeah, I want your mommy." Like, he always says. Yeah, that line has a bit more disturbing implications now that I'm an adult, but
Oh.
But the problem with the Power Rangers episode, so first of all, there's 2 problems. One is that Tommy goes back into the command center, but he doesn't part the consoles again. Now, from a story perspective, it's because, well, you only have one more episode, so you can't have Billy go back and fix everything again in one episode. But can we get an in-universe perspective on why he doesn't just rip everything apart again? And secondly, why do the Rangers hesitate to call their Zords in that? And, people say, well, they don't have the Sentai footage to do that. They do. You can have footage of Rita talking to the Zyurangers while they're morphed and use that as, Rita just saying a generic line like, Power Rangers, when you summon your Zords next, that will be the destruction of your Megazord. And, I don't know. It's still powerful. They do a good job at recreating the shots of seeing the Rangers watches their Zord sink away, but it's a lot more powerful in Zyuranger because they knew what was coming and they still fought back anyway.
I think it also helps, and this is one of the few things I do think Zyuranger does pretty well, is that it's established pretty early on that Daijujin isn't your typical mech, even by modern Sentai standards, because he's basically God in this Sentai. So it means that he has a much greater importance to the overall plot, and they do make it feel like that he is vital to the Zyuranger's success. So when he gets supposedly killed here, it isn't like, oh crap, we just lost our robots. No, they basically just watched God die. That's got a lot of weight behind it when you look at it that way.
It's like the equivalent in Lord of the Rings when they see Gandalf fall, or in Harry Potter when Dumbledore dies. Like, it's a lot more. It has a lot more meaning to it than you might think at first sight.
Mm-hmm.
And only problem I have with this episode is that they have to bring those stupid dinosaur eggs back. Those kids being trapped in the bus, tumbling down, that is fine enough as it is. You don't have to bring those stupid dinosaur eggs back.
It feels like it foamed them in. It foamed it in. Like, oh yeah, we have these kids. Oh no, and dinosaur eggs. Wait, what? You already had us with the kids. Why did you put the? Shut up, dude.
We're gonna make you like this dinosaur egg story arc, and you're gonna like it.
Right.
No, I don't want to like it. Well, too bad.
Too bad.
But that's the only flaw I can really think of in this episode. Like everything else is just like is really powerful.
Yeah.
Like
I agree with that as well.
I mean, the only thing that could have been done a little bit better, and it's not something about this one episode, but I think it's just the fatigue of it's always kids that they have to save. If it was like a group of civilians, adults, kids, whatever, I'd kind of prefer that. And that's a little nitpick to me, but it's just like they're going back to the tried and true thing that they know works for their Sentai. Well,
I agree with you on that.
I mean, you're just regurgitating the biggest complaint everybody has with Zyuranger. So you're not. It's not a nitpick. It's a valid complaint.
The fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is where Burai's story arc. Pardon me. This is where Burai's story arc starts to kind of get a little bit better than Green with Evil story arc. And I'm gonna give this episode a 9.5. The only reason I'm taking off half a point is because the stupid dinosaur eggs don't have to be there, but it's not enough to ruin the episode. So I'm sticking with a 9.5.
I'll say 8.
I'll say I'm gonna go at an 8.
What'd you say, Anthony, for your score?
Oh, I was going to 8 as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't agree with you that this is better than Mighty Morphin.
I mean, like even in the context of the Green with Evil arc?
Yeah.
I mean, we can discuss that more at the end, but I just feel like the Power Rangers episode, at least for this one, is just incredibly repetitive because like Tommy gets back into the command center like he already did, and I mean all he does is just kind of devastate, and all he does is just like do a little like first again, why doesn't he rip the consoles apart again? And not only that, but the episode ends with Zordon revealing to them that Tommy is the Green Ranger, which I feel like is a huge cop out because I felt like you feel like they're going to go the route of them finding out that Tommy is the Green Ranger themselves. So I don't know. Like the episode feels repetitive with Tommy getting back into the command center. There's no explanation for why the Rangers hesitate to summon their Zords, and Zordon revealing to them that Tommy is the Green Ranger just feels like a Deus Ex Machina type of thing.
I understand your point on Zordon revealing Tommy. Like, I can see that being a problem for you. But honestly, Zordon can very easily know that. He kind of transcends the conventional norms of what he can know and what he can find out.
No, I'm fine with Zordon already knowing who Tommy is. I'm fine with that. I get what you're saying. I don't like how he reveals to the Rangers instead of like give a better example of how this is found out. In Dino Thunder, Tommy finds out that Trent is the White Ranger first when Trent transforms and then attacks Tommy. But before Tommy can reveal who the White Ranger is, Trent freezes him in that amber, but then Connor, Kira, and Ethan find out who Trent is by themselves before Tommy gets unfrozen. So couldn't the Rangers find out who Tommy is before they get back in contact with Zordon? You get what I'm trying to say?
I get it. I just think that's an incredible nitpick in the grand scheme of storytelling here. Because it's already been said once in the beginning that Tommy can enter the command center because he has a power coin. So it makes sense that he goes in the first time. He does the stuff to disable everything. He leaves. Rita and him notice at some point in the future, oh look, they're starting to rebuild the command center. Let's go mess with them again to make sure that they don't come back because we're not ready for them to be back at full power yet.
But then why didn't he rip the command center apart like he did before?
I think there was didn't he get called away by Rita?
Oh, like he rips like a power, he ripped part of Alpha off, which like he took like Alpha's power supply out, which shut Alpha down. I mean, he had like a good amount of time where all he does is just like screw around with the controls. Time that could have been used to rip the consoles apart.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been repetitive, so they didn't do that again.
Wouldn't that have been more effective for them to screw with the Power Rangers?
It would have been, but I think your complaint about it being repetitive, if he had done it a second time verbatim what he did the first time, it wouldn't have been nearly as interesting.
I guess.
But my thing is like I don't see what you see in Zyuranger that makes it so great.
I think I can sum it up like this because I think you're both right. I think it's a matter of if you single the story arc out, I think Zyurangers might be better because I think the plot of it is more intense. But if you look at it in the grand scope of both seasons, because Zyuranger is so underdeveloped, the Mighty Morphin one just has a little bit more of an emotional impact. Because the Psycho Ranger arc and its Sentai counterpart, the Nezu Ranger arc, are literally beat for beat the same story. But the Psycho Ranger arc to me is just better because of what happens before and after it.
Yeah.
In Space is just much better written than in Mega Ranger.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, I think that's why I'm gonna favor Greenwood Evil.
yeah.
Is while I let me see how to word this. While you're probably right, Nathan, that technically this is a better written piece of story, it doesn't fit with what we've had prior to this in the last 19 episodes. Because why do we really care about anyone except for the villains here? They make me like the villains more than the real heroes of the thing.
I can understand that. Like, it's like what Patrick said. Like, I think Patrick
Yeah.
kind of it perfectly. Like, if you look at this
Yeah.
and without looking at the context of the rest of Zyuranger, I think it's powerful by itself. But the problem is that. But so I can understand what you're saying that you care more about these Mighty Morphin characters because I do too. I do, but I just think that Zyuranger, like the writing, if we remove all the context from all the bad writing that's come before it, the writing is just a little bit better here.
Now, I will say, while I am defending Mighty Morphin and the characters I have a much closer relationship to, I do have my complaints with some things that happen in Greenwood Evil with the Mighty Morphin cast and things I wish the actors had done better. Um, for example, I can't pinpoint exactly what it is, but Austin St. John in the second part, was it the second part where he's with Goldar, or the third
He's
part?
in both part 2 and 3.
Okay, so while he's with Goldar, he's not he's not portraying the emotion I would expect from the guy who's the leader of the Power Rangers, the martial arts master. He's he's kind of two-dimensional in his acting in this part, but later on it improves again. But for that little bit in the middle, it didn't really do a lot for me. And the recent watch I did.
Yeah, yeah, I can agree with that. I think we covered that a little bit in
Like,
the Mighty Morphin review before we started on Zyuranger.
dude, I honestly don't remember where I said what anymore because we were recording this for the second time.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I don't know. But I just think that there are things they could have improved with Mighty Morphin. I agree with you on that. But I still think, end of the day, I'd care more about these guys and their story than what's going on here. Like, I don't really even care about Daizuzan or anything really. You know,
Juju's
like,
not somebody you should be caring about because he's a jerk. But
Yeah,
but yeah, I can agree with that. I can agree that the Mighty Morphin characters are better as people. At no point am I going to say that in this Zyuranger series. It's
yeah.
But anyway, let's move on to the fifth episode here. Sorry. Did you want to say anything else, Riz? Or
No, I'm gonna stick with my 8 and move on.
um, so we have the Guardian Beasts Great Riot, where at the beginning of this episode, Burai has a falling out with Bandora, who since they've helped each other take out Daijujin, so now they don't have to work together anymore. Pardon me. He tries to kill Bandora, but it doesn't work. And then he gets led to this pocket dimension by a mysterious spirit. We're gonna find out his name later, and it is revealed in by the spirit that in the pocket dimension, Burai has this green candle, and the green candle is preserved as life energy for him. And as long as he stays in this pocket dimension, which is called the Timeless Room, he will be fine. But every time he goes out into the real world, the candle will slowly burn away, and once the candle is burned out, Burai will die. So very similar to the Green Candle story arc, except it's starting a little bit earlier. And we're not going to find out until the next podcast under what circumstances why this is, but this is how it is for Burai. Burai is given his own legendary weapon. Y'all know what it is. It's called the Dragon Dagger in Power Rangers, but in this case, it's a flute-like dagger called Jusoken. Jusoken gives him the ability to travel freely between the Timeless Room and the real world. And when he starts playing it like a flute, it allows him to summon his own guardian beast, Dragon Caesar. We all love that. Very iconic mech. So Burai is still determined to get revenge on Geki, so he arrives in the real world and he summons Dragon Caesar and lets it loose on the city, where it starts wreaking havoc and destroying the city. Geki and the other Zyurangers arrive, and it's here that Geki realizes that Burai is harming people, and ultimately, since Geki is the warrior of justice, I'm not making that up because he literally calls himself that in the next podcast. He says he'll no longer hesitate to fight, and he will defeat Burai in the name of justice. And then the episode ends with Bandora unleashing Giant Reforzer and Lamy to fight Dragon Caesar. A little bit of a fun fact here: this is actually the 800th episode of Super Sentai overall. It wasn't counted as such at the time, since I think I said this in our history of Super Sentai. Go Ranger and Jaka were not recognized as part of the franchise at the time that this Sentai was airing, but in retrospect, it became the 800th episode. So, what do we think of this episode? Anybody want to get started first? Patrick or anybody else? Go ahead.
I like Dragon Caesar. He's a very obvious Godzilla reference because how he rises out of the water. But it feels like it's just more so set up for the finale, because there's not much to this. And in hindsight, I don't know why Clotho, because that's his name, spoiler alert, is introduced and the candle's introduced right now. Because this is starting a completely different story arc before this one's even finished. And I don't like that. It just makes things a little bit messy right here.
Well, not only does it make it messy, but there's a spoiler I'm about to say, but basically, nothing happens at the story point again for like, I would say 7-8 episodes at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you. Why mention it here?
Yeah.
It could have happened later.
Like
It
I
would have made a
couldn't
lot more
like
sense later.
yeah. Like I don't mind him maybe popping up and dropping the Zuzoskin on him, saying that this is your actual legendary weapon and that's your actual guardian beast, and then they let the story arc play out from here, and then the candle gets introduced immediately after this story arc ends to kind of tip things into the next chapter of his story. But this is just like tripping into a new story arc in this current story arc. I don't know. I don't like the approach.
And it makes Clotho look like kind of a dick too, because it's like, so Burai, you can't go out into the real world and do anything, but I got some good news for you. Here's a new weapon and a guardian beast. Do whatever you want.
No, you can't go out into the real world, but here's a weapon that allows you to go out into the real world.
And here's a guardian beast that you can use to cause damage in the real world. Now, don't go doing that, mister.
Well, it's more like, do what you will. You're a grown-ass adult, so figure out what you want to do yourself.
But why would you give him that after you told him he can't go into the real world?
That's what I'm saying. Like give him the dagger and Dragon Caesar before you introduce the timeless room and the green candle. Like, I don't know. It's
timing.
Especially because he went to kill Bandora. Bandora knocked him to Earth, and he just instantly gets drugged into the timeless room by Clotho with no break in between. Like, slow down. You have a lot of episodes after this to establish Clotho and everything. You don't have to go right into it.
Now, here's the question I had. Was Burai burning his life before under Bandora, or is it only after he started to betray Bandora?
You mean the candle? I'm assuming it was working ever since he got freed.
Yeah.
But they never
So,
established.
how much time?
Yeah, I don't know. They never even like acknowledged that. But
because logically speaking,
he should have lost a couple of days.
I think we would say 10 because in the I can't remember if it's the first or second episode, but Bandora says Daijujin will die in 10 days.
Yes,
so I think this whole story arc has gone over the course of 10 days.
Yeah.
Well, that'll explain why he had so little time left when the candle was actually introduced.
Yeah. Because the candle already looks like it's been burned down a little bit, and when we see it in the timeless room. So we can probably assume that maybe he was given, like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, and then maybe 10 days and maybe some change burned away, and now he only has a little bit more time left.
Yes. Oh, why did Clotho just now reach out to him? He also could have done something cool where maybe Clotho talked to him earlier in the story arc and tried to tell him about the candles. Like, hey, if you leave this room, this candle's going to dwindle out, and Burai just thinks he's bullcrapping him. And then after a while, I was like, oh crap, the candle is going down. Shoot.
Or have Clotho be a recurring character who's constantly warning Burai that his life is in danger.
Yeah, like have him hovering over him, or screaming at him from the nether realm. Hey, stupid.
Yeah, I think it would have been more powerful to have Clotho appear in Bandora's castle and kind of be a recurring character in Bandora's group that on the side is trying to help Burai, but Burai is not having it because
he's like
Bandora
a spirit that, like, whenever Burai's doing something, he just kind of like appears behind him and warns him about stuff, and Burai tells him to shut up.
Yeah.
And then, you could still have Clotho appear in this episode, but just, and this would have worked a lot better if Clotho was a recurring character. Like, Clotho shows up, and then Burai is like, oh no, it's you! And then, Clotho's all like, hey, here's your Jusoken. And then he gets it before he's shown the timeless room.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I gave this when we originally did this podcast, but I don't know. Hearing what you guys have to say has kind of left a much worse taste in my mouth about this episode. So I'm gonna give this a 5.
Yeah, same here. It's a little bit of a shallow episode on top of everything else.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the weird part. It's shallow, but it's bringing up such a critical storyline that goes on for like the
Yeah, I
next,
know.
I don't know, 15, 20
It's
episodes at
actually
least.
kind of impressive that they managed to pull that off.
Are you surprised though?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I can still laugh at it.
Unfortunately, Anthony dropped due to technical difficulties. I'm assuming that he'll just give it a 5 or something. But anyway, we're going to move on to the final episode of this arc. Combined, Go Ryujin. So so early on, so Urza calls out to the Guardian Beasts, and the Guardian Beasts emerge. It's revealed at the magma that was in the ground that they sunk in was a massive source of Gaiatron, which they used to heal itself. Okay. To be fair, the Power Rangers episode is also very convenient. Alpha restores Zordon, then Zordon revives the Zords himself. Maybe the Power Rangers version feels a little bit more earned than this, but the revival of the Guardian Beasts does not feel earned here.
It doesn't feel earned, but I'll give it the benefit of the doubt that Gaiatron was established to be an energy of the earth. So I guess it would make sense that it would be inside the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So sure. I'll at least let this convenience slide because I can accept it.
Zyuranger does the good thing where we see the Zyurangers all running toward their Guardian Beasts and like calling out for it. I really wish that like we saw the Power Rangers be like, Zords, they're back! Just something like that. But whatever. So Graforza and Lamy retreat, and the next huge part of this is that we get a huge battle where so in Power Rangers they have the Rangers defeat the Dragon Zord with the Megazord, and then it moves on to Jason and Tommy's one-on-one battle. But here, it's they're both done at the same time. The Tyrannosaurus battles against Dragon Caesar, while Geki confronts Burai. They have their big fight, and the fight between Geki and Burai is pretty cool. They actually start off untransformed, and then they transform. They both, and you know how the episode plays out if you've seen the Power Rangers episode. Again, Caesar gets overpowered. Jujin shows up, although in this case he's operating independently as opposed to Power Rangers where they're technically controlling the Megazord, but Jujin beats Dragon Caesar into submission. Geki gets the upper hand, and Daijujin orders Geki to kill Burai for his evil deeds, which again is gonna make something that happens in the next podcast make so little sense. But Patrick and I already went on a rant about that when we recorded that podcast. So
yeah. Look forward to it next time.
I don't know. That frustrates me a lot more now that I've seen those episodes and we're re-recording this. The more I think about it,
Yeah.
Geki refuses to kill Burai. He won't kill his own brother and says that, hey, if killing me is going to cleanse the hatred in your heart, go ahead and kill me. And Burai, Burai sees the error of his ways, and he starts crying. His tears melt the Hellfried sword, and Daijujin declares that the evil in his heart is gone. So the Zyurangers, they all transform, and with Burai having joined, they celebrate with some epic posing. Daijujin reveals that dragons. We get a little bit of a toy commercial now, where Daijujin reveals that Dragon Caesar can combine with the mammoth, triceratops, and saber-toothed tiger to form Ryujin. And Then Burai returns to his pocket dimension. He doesn't reveal what happened to him. The Zyurangers are, really confused. We also learned that the spirit's name is Clotho, the spirit of life, and he only has like a little bit of time left. Uh, and yeah, that's how this story arc ends. So, what did we think of this episode, guys?
So I'm gonna use a word that I don't use normally. I'm just whelmed. I'm not underwhelmed and I'm not overwhelmed. It just kind of existed, you know?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I used to say that this was my favorite Sixth Ranger introduction arc ever, but revisiting it for this re-recording, and so we obviously all agreed in the King Oger podcast that Spider Kumonos' arc kind of, took this over, but honestly, I don't even know if I would say that this is the best arc the more I think about it. Like, really, I think Boke and Silver's story arc is a lot better. And honestly, I think you guys will be even more impressed by Timefire's story arc. Very similar to how Eric debuts, but I think I think you can probably agree, Riz, that Eric's debut is pretty cool, right?
Eric's debut is one of the best ones in the franchise for PR.
And then you'll probably enjoy Timefire's debut.
So like, I don't know, the thing here is it's just too there's just too many things I don't like. The big one is something that Mighty Morphin does a little bit better, and that while they accept Tommy as being one of them again, it's not an immediate, oh, we love you, you're amazing. There is a little bit of friction between Jason and Tommy later on, which kind of breeds this idea of, they have to struggle to get to work together and learn how to redo team dynamics. But spoilers for the next podcast, it's already recorded, but Brian and Geki don't really get that. And it just seems too convenient that they're like, oh, Daisuzen says you're not evil anymore. I will automatically reprogram my entire person to not think about you as being evil. I will trust you 100%. You have no reason to have lost my trust. I don't like that.
That would have required them writing internal conflicts.
Right.
Now it's all just transform and pose for no reason, and then we'll have a little bit of toy commercial at the end.
And it's and it's funny that you say that, Riz, because in Mighty Morphin it would make more sense for them to openly accept
And they
Tommy
did.
with open arms.
They kind of did, but
yeah, they kind of did. Yeah, but there was a little bit more conflict there than here, where it would have made more sense for there to be
right, because we had the internal conflict between him and Kim almost throughout the 5-parter. Like on a personal level. You had that kind of build up, so it makes more sense to me that Kim would forgive Tommy because Kim had seen Tommy before he turned evil, when he was evil, and after he was turned back to good. So Kim can kind of validate and verify that, yeah, this is Tommy, I can trust him. And Jason, I think, does trust him in the beginning, but there's still that internal conflict of how do you work together? Because they're both alpha dogs, right? Like they both want to be a leader. But here, Burai doesn't. He doesn't really do anything after this point.
Like, we don't even see how he interacts with the other Zyurangers. It's just him and Geki's relationship, and Burai's relationship with everyone else is just non-existent.
I mean, I know it would have been a cliche since she's the only girl on the team, but I don't know. You could have done like something with Burai, and I'll be honest. I can never see May having a romance with any of the other main four. Zyurangers, because
No.
the Zyurangers, the main 5 all come off as a family. Like, they feel more like a family than any romance could happen. But I don't know. You could have like a bit of a romance story with Burai and May. I mean,
Well, again, that requires the writers to be able to write.
I know they can't do that.
But okay, so that's one complaint I had was the entire how quick they accept um everything. My other one, it's not really a problem for this set of episodes, but I just want to harken back to what Patrick said about Clotho and how soon this all happened. This didn't have happened right here. It just doesn't make sense. Like, one minute they're all celebrating together, next minute Burai is gone, and like it could have been drawn out more.
Yeah, because we didn't get any moments of them just being a team.
They're never a team. Like,
no. And because they introduced Clotho so early, it really does feel like Burai doesn't belong.
no, he
here
doesn't.
going forward.
He's just there to save the day, maybe. And I know we're getting into a lot of the next podcast with this one, with the curse of re-recording, but I just don't think this episode was great. It was just poorly written to me. A lot of things that could have been done better. And then here's a stupid question. I understand that we have a new formation involving 4 of the 6 Rangers, and I understand that Tyrannosaur can do his own thing on the side to fight. Where the heck did the pterodactyl go in all this?
Yeah, that.
I know. I like how they go to that shot of Goryujin and Tyrannosaurus is in the background, like roaring, but the pterodactyl is just like up in the top corner of the screen, spinning in circles.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, what they should have done to make another toy, they should have had Pterodactyl and Tyrannosaur merge and give the T-Rex some wings and let him fly.
You could have just had the Pterodon be part of Go Ryujin. I mean, it's kind of like the combination in X1. I can't remember what it was called. The Mega Tiger Zord in Season 2. I can't remember what it was called in Zyuranger, where the Tiger Zord, the Wand Tiger, can combine with all the Key Beast except Reds. If that makes sense. I'm not sure how they would bring in the pterodactyl. Like, maybe you could have the pterodactyl be like a shield or something, but I mean, it's something.
I mean, do something with it. Like, talking about Mighty Morphin more, like the Ultra Zord even, you don't see Pterodactyl on there.
I mean, in the Ultra Zord, it's part of Daijujin.
Oh, yeah, you're right. No, you're right. That's true. That's my bad. But no, what the heck does Pterodactyl do? Like, where does Kimberly and May go? Does Kim?
It's one of those pesky women mechs. We don't need it.
I hate it.
By the way, that mech combination was called Kiba Now I just looked it up, but yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I guess looking back at it in hindsight, like now, I'm not gonna say that I all of a sudden like Green with Evil, a whole lot more, because I still think that Green with Evil is overrated. Don't hate it. I still love Green with Evil, but I think if I'm looking at my favorite Power Rangers arc in Season 1, I would still say that I prefer the Green Candle to Green with Evil. But yeah, I don't know. This story arc is honestly not as amazing as I remember it out to be, and maybe this is because I'm technically revisiting this for the 3rd time, but you were saying, Riz, I still think that the writing in Green with Evil has problems, but the one thing I'll give you credit for, and this is ultimately what overrides everything, is that I at least care about the Mighty Morphin characters, and I want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
I don't care about the Zyurangers. So I will give you that 100%.
Yeah, like, it doesn't matter that there's writing problems with Mighty Morphin. It matters that we care about them more. So that's my argument for why Greenwood Evil is the better story arc.
There's still better Six Ranger story arcs in Power Rangers, like Ryan's story arc and Eric's story arc are better than Greenwood Evil, but
Trent is better.
Yeah, specifically Ryan. Because there's a lot of similarities.
Honestly, even in if I'm just looking at this from the context of Sentai, like obviously I would say Spider Kimono's story arc is better. Like we talked about how great that story arc is in our previous podcast. Mm-hmm. I mean, even Patrick had to admit that was a really great story arc.
Hell, even the audio drama does the better job of Greenwood Evil.
Mm-hmm.
Oh! If we're comparing this to the audio drama, then the audio drama does it so much better than this.
Yeah,
I'm not even gonna. We don't even have to have that debate.
I'm just stating the fact.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't say that this is the worst Sentai Sixth Ranger introduction arc. I would probably have to say that. Granted, maybe this is just because I have bias against this character. I would have to say it's King Ranger from O Ranger. No, I still... Yeah.
Duh. Don't... King Ranger's the worst.
It's a pity that Anthony's had to drop, but like, he gets captured after his debut. That's a great way to show off how great this Sixth Ranger is. Let's see him get kidnapped.
And then my favorite aspect of King Ranger is... he just chooses when to show up. I'm gonna show up unmorphed, unhinged in this episode, and then vanish when the mech fight starts. I'm only gonna show up when the mech fight starts. I'm gonna show up in costume this time, and then not when just screw you. I hate King Ranger, man. He's so bad.
Yeah, but this is still not the worst Sixth Ranger arc because, like I said, I think that the Daijujin stuff is still very powerful, but this is kind of a middle of the pack type of Sixth Ranger introduction. Like, I don't know, maybe when we do Bokenger and I see Boken Silver story arc, maybe I'll say that was the best one before Spider Kimono's kind of just came in and just, took over. But yeah. Or maybe you guys will maybe we could agree that Time Fire's story arc is better, but yeah, we'll just have to see. But I think the main. Was that Patrick?
I'd go as far as to say Shinken Gold had a better intro story arc than this.
Because at least Genta's a fun character. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna be a little nice to this final episode and say that it has a great final battle and kind of try to make sense out of Burai's motivations with him wanting to kill Geki for blaming him for all of his things. I'm not going to give it a high grade though. I'm going to give it a 6.5 this last episode.
I'll give it a 7 just because this is probably my favorite fight in Sentai. Just choreography wise, yeah. I do love the crap out of this fight. And I do think for as many issues as we has with the story arc, I do think this closes it out pretty nicely. Mm-hmm. I do agree Burai being forced to leave at the end because of the Clotho stuff being introduced already was really, it kind of made it end on a bizarre note, especially after, like you said, here's the new toy, go buy it, was done. But yeah, I mean, it's not the best, but I think it did its job just fine.
Man, instinctually, I want to give it a 5 for all the things I've complained about. But that fight scene really was good.
Would you say it's as good as the Marvelous and Bosco fight is?
Hell no.
Okay. Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. That fight and the final Takeru Juzo fight are
the
probably
top
a little bit
fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Well, Black Condor and Gray in the finale of Jetman is up there too.
Hi, welcome to the top 3.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I've actually blown through all of Zyuranger ahead of this recording. There's not going to be a fight in Zyuranger that hits in the top 5.
No. This is the best fight in Zyuranger without question.
Yeah, and so for that alone, I'm going to have to give this a 6.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't go higher.
Normally, I would say here that, so we don't have to do character rankings because, nobody did anything in this story arc except...
It's easy. It's Burai at top, May, then all the other idiots at the bottom, and at the same rank. They're all tied.
No, I think Goshi deserves to be number... okay, he didn't do anything in this arc, but I think Goshi's fine.
Goshi will be moved up at a later point in time. We'll get there when we get there.
I don't think Goshi deserves as much hate.
No, but he hasn't done anything yet to give me any respect until the next arc.
You're right. And, we don't have to... We've already just kind of talked about how we compare this to Green with Evil. And, yeah, I think... I don't know. Maybe if I'll be honest, maybe at some point I think that I like them both fine. Maybe I think the writing in this is a little bit better, but... I have to give it to Riz that it doesn't matter if I don't care about these characters, which I don't. So, yeah, did anybody else want to give their closing thoughts before we wrap up?
My only closing thought is Green with Evil wins. But Tommy and Burai are both really good characters. It just sucks that Burai doesn't get any love.
Anything you need to say, Patrick?
I've said everything I needed to say.
Okay,
and that's all you'll say.
Before we wrap up, I do want to apologize to the people who are listening. If it seems that there's a little bit of wind out of our sails during this podcast, we do apologize. This is something that we had to re-record due to technical difficulties. We absolutely apologize. We'll have the same energy. Not that that's a good thing because we have a lot of negative energy with the Sentai, but we'll have the same energy in the next podcast. And a little bit of a schedule update.
Real quick, before we forget, I have to make my obligatory comment that this is still better than Gekuranger.
Okay, cool. I didn't say anything to set you up for a rant this time, so I'm pretty proud of myself.
Next arc,
we almost got to the end.
No, you didn't. I said something in the middle as well.
I know. I was just hoping that we'd get to an end of a podcast one time and you forget.
Nope.
But anyway, so to close out the month of July, we're hoping to be done with Zyuranger by at least the beginning of August. We have 2 more Zyuranger podcasts, so we've already recorded the one that's supposed to come after this. That will be posted. Then we're going to be doing 2 more Zyurangers where we take a look at episodes, I believe, 33 through 42. And after that, we're just going to cover all the remaining Zyuranger episodes up to the finale, which is 43 to 50. And then we're done with the Sentai, which has been a lot more trouble for us than we bargained for, unfortunately. But
I blame Patrick 100%.
Oh, I blame Zyuranger because it comes with the territory.
Yeah, he's got a point.
If you want to go with that argument, I'll go with blaming Saban because that's where they adapted first.
Yeah. If it wasn't for you adapting this season into Mighty Morphin, we wouldn't even be talking about this Sentai. Screw you, Saban.
We're going to be doing our... I don't think we've mentioned this in our other podcast, so I'm going to go ahead and mention it now. We are going to be doing another King Oger podcast where we're going to be taking a look. The last episode we did was 12, so we're going to do 13 all the way up to the most recent episode that's aired, after which we will then do kind of a weekly podcast, try to do it once a week, where just a 30-minute podcast on the most recent King Oger episode that's come out, so that's going to be a new format. But after we're done with Zyuranger, we're going to be taking a look at the first 2 seasons of the Power Rangers audio drama, which we highly recommend, by the way. Kind of a spoiler alert for what we think about that podcast, but still, that audio drama, sorry. Then we're going to be moving on with Time Ranger, and I'm really hoping that these guys will like it so that I can give us credit. I can take the credit for us reviewing another good Sentai, but...
Validate me.
The head writer is the same person who did Shinkenger, so it has to be good.
Yes, I know. Well, yeah, well,
We can't keep striking out.
no.
That said, we are the Toku Secrets Podcast. We thank you guys so much for listening to us, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, or iTunes. If you are watching this on YouTube, though, we do ask if you'd like, leave any comments down below, what your thoughts are. You could give us your thoughts on Zyuranger or, whatever the subject matter it is that we're discussing in the podcast you're watching, or you can give us some, ideas on like what you want us to cover, and if you ask us questions or anything, we will take time, a segment in our podcast, to read the comments. Your feedback is very much important to us, because without you guys, we would not be able to do this podcast. So we'll see you guys next time when we go look at another Zyuranger, and we'll also see you again when we record our next podcast. But until that time, guys, you guys stay safe. We love you, and may the power protect you.